to the top. Ragamuffin keeps striving in every way. International, what they call me international. When me ride palm with them in the move, but the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm with them and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place, I with the one Jamal Street. We are the general. We sit up on the rhythm and over the mic incredible. I'm be right part of the rhythm, move with the rhythm, I sit down steady. Every ragamuffin you do, I feel rock and follow me. Cool, you know you love her for your life. We jump up on the rhythm, make we ride it right. We chat up on the mic and keep it international. Cause anytime we jump on mic, they call we give it a general. International, what they call me international. When me ride palm with them and I move with the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm with them and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place, I with the one Jamal Street.
Yes. What is going on, everybody? Joshua Casper back at you with another live stream. Very excited. How's everyone doing? I see a lot of familiar names in here. I love to see it. Robert Bielos. I see you. I see your comments, man. I see you in every stream. Appreciate you showing up each and every time. UJAM is in the house, in the chat, and with me on stream today, so that's very exciting. Say hello to UJAM. You can at UJAM, pretty sure. Just going to give it a second, let people filter in. While that's happening, I just want to give a couple of quick announcements. I see you, UJAM. I see you. Is that Yannick or Christoph? Who's on the UJAM chat tonight? A couple of quick announcements. First of all, Black Friday stream next week. It's going to be a banger. It's the third annual Black Friday stream between myself and Rob Jones. We're going to be talking about music production. We're going to be talking about plugins. We're going to be talking about plugin deals. And, of course, giving plugins away. We'd love to start the holiday season off by giving back to the community. And I get to do it via these streams and giving away plugins. I love it. Makes me feel like Santa Claus. Dream fulfilled. I'm trying to think. I've got one more announcement to make. Well, it is Black Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely head over to Plugin Boutique and check out the deals page. It is, I believe, over or close to 300 deals already available on Plugin Boutique, up to like 89% off of like some of the best plugins, including SSL. I've got that on the mind because I've just been making my second plugin best plugin deals video, and that is a feature on it. Very excited about that. But that being said, let's turn our focus to today's stream. We're going to be talking with Adam D'Agostino. I mispronounced his name in my promotional video earlier today, so I do apologize for that. I've already apologized to him, but I'm apologizing to you as well. We're going to be talking about an instrument that literally came out a couple of hours ago. It's Symphonic Elements BRAAASS. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's incredible. Adam's already given me a taste, and I'm really excited to jump in and not only hear it for myself for the first time, but let you all hear it as well. So if you have any questions along the way for me or Adam or UJAM, just at Plugin Boutique, and my friend Killian, who is manning the chat today, will send those to me and we'll get them answered live on stream. But with that, join me in welcoming Adam. Adam, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. I think we can all agree. Getting an exclusive first look at a plugin that came out on the day we do a stream is just fantastic, and I'm super excited about it. And you've teased me a little bit already when we were doing the test on how it sounds, so I'm really, really pumped to get the full spectrum of this instrument. But before we do that, perhaps maybe it's best for you to jump in and let us know maybe a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do with the UJAM team.
Yeah, totally. So I am what we refer to as a product owner at UJAM. So basically, I take certain series and products under my wing, and it's my responsibility to sort of be a project manager, but also maintain the overall success of the product and the vision, make sure the vision is in line with what we set out to do. And basically, in general, just ensure the success of the products. So we have a couple of different product owners managing different series and titles. So that is my role within the company, and that's what I did for BRAAASS.
Nice. So obviously we're going to be talking about BRAAASS today, but what are some of the other instruments that people might know that you've had direct hands-on with?
So I actually only started about 1 year and 3 months ago with UJAM. So it's only a few, but the most successful and maybe most well-known one is probably the Virtual Pianist Vogue. That was a brand new series for UJAM. So it was my biggest project. Previously, I had only done a finisher title, and as you can probably imagine, doing a whole new series is much more involved and a little more complicated. So in the development process, so being a product owner on a new series was really my big first job there. So yeah, Vogue is definitely the one most people would know. I also had my hands on Virtual Drummer Hot, which is one of the more recent releases as well, which is cool. So now you can expect me on those two series from now on, most likely. And then this is BRAAASS as well. I've handled this one. And the other finisher I did actually as my first project was Dynamo.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, as we always do with these dev streams, I want to jump right into the audio demo because that's really what it's all about, and people are excited to hear it. Before we do that, everybody, we are doing some giveaways today. And just like every other dev stream that we do, to be entered to win those, all you need to do is be active and positive in the chat. That's asking questions, answering questions you have answers for, and just being an all-around good force in the chat, and you'll be entered to win. We're going to choose a few people at random towards the end of the stream and get everybody some plugins. So with that, Adam, what do you say we jump into Ableton Live and check out this new instrument?
Totally, yeah. Let's switch over. Open up the plugin there. So this is the first look. If you haven't seen images or checked out the website yet, this is the first look of the GUI of BRAAASS. And I will open up briefly the other titles just to show in comparison how they feel and look together, because there are now 3 titles in the series. Some people should know about drums and strings. They're actually some of the most successful titles we have, strings especially. So BRAAASS really adds a lot of meat to the series that people have been requesting. I think it was one of our most recommended or suggested product from our users. So we finally delivered on it. And it actually really does some crazy things in the context of the other 2 titles. So that's part of the audio demo I'll demonstrate. But yeah, so I just wanted to show you the UI real quick because it's pretty complementary to the series as a whole.
That is one of the things that I like about UJAM's line of plugins, including the virtual series, whether that be drummer or bassist or guitarist, is once you have a handle on the workflow inside of these, you really just jump right in with the next version, whether, you know what I mean? It's really just a cool way to approach these, and just hats off that the Symphonic Elements are continuing that tradition.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that we pride ourselves on in general, is making things intuitive and easy to use. So once we sort of establish a convention in a series, we really don't want to change it unless we have to. And so you'll notice actually the main difference is that drums has a slightly different keyboard layout, but you can imagine the instruments are so different. So kind of makes sense, and we kind of had to. But strings, we actually were able to keep the exact same keyboard layout for brass. So what that means is you can actually use the same exact MIDI on both of the titles. Makes it super easy for users, and it makes it super easy. It made it super easy for me to create the demo too here, because I just used the same MIDI. But I will show you that in a minute. So I think for now, I'll just show you some demos from Brass itself.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I'm just going to play some stuff and I'll probably jump in. But I'm just going to load, when you first load the plugin, you're set in this introduction category, and it's a curated set of presets that we think have a pretty good scope of what the plugin can cover. And so if you're not familiar with our stuff, our phrase players in our instruments are controlled on the keyboard in this section with phrase key switches. I'm using my MIDI keyboard now, but basically our plugins work in a way where we have styles that are essentially compositions or arrangements. And once you pick one, that defines the aesthetic of what's played, and then the phrase switches actually offer variation. So usually the leftmost is the least intense, so it's quieter, it's more delicate. And as you move upwards, it gets a lot more intense. So that's the first preset. I'm just going to scroll through a couple real quick.
Hey, Adam, quick.
Yeah.
I see that the UI is resizable. Do you think we can make it a little bit bigger?
So I have a very massive monitor. This is the max size that it instantiates at. It goes smaller if you're on a laptop, but this is, yeah.
And also, let's turn it up just a tad, I think. Just
really, this instrument. Yep, gotcha.
Yeah, hear that brass shine.
All right. You'll notice the iconic name here, Zimmer riff. There are some references. For those who don't know, the Symphonic Elements series, the samples are actually from Hans Zimmer's sample library. So these are legit recordings. And we basically sift through them. We get their permission and we sift through the libraries, pull out what we can use, and create instruments out of them. So this is a little acknowledgement to Hans. I think Boris created a style that's pretty similar to what Hans likes to do. But I'm going to speed up a little through some of these examples. So you've got a lot of coverage here. I mean, that's the infamous sort of bra type sound that is famous for Hans Zimmer. And so we do have a whole category in here of just Brahms, of huge, just massive brass, just so you can get some really powerful long sustains, because definitely something people will be looking for sure.
Are you gonna play a few?
Oh, I could go into that category for sure. Yeah, let's take a look.
I'm a fan. I'd love to hear some.
So there's some less bass heavy ones like that. More massive there.
Oh boy.
Very subby. That one's really subby. Yeah. Hopefully that didn't break anyone's ears.
No, it sounds fantastic.
A little more subtle, more rumbly. Yeah, there's a lot of variation in here. I'm trying to see if I remember any of them being specifically cool, but I've listened to them so often that I honestly forget. And just real quick, another thing that some people might not know about if they're not familiar with our stuff is that the keys I'm playing are in the play range here. That's basically informing the instrument what notes and chords to play. So when you pick a style, it's not so much playing specific notes. There are a few that do that. We have a category of melodic stuff where you can, and that's kind of like the first preset I showed you here. The melodic ones kind of do imply a bit of a melody when you play chords. So if I play just an A minor, you can hear it's doing a little inversion there. And when you play different chords, it really becomes a melody. So that's really cool. That's one of my favorite parts of the instrument, honestly, is the motifs, the melodic content. But so yeah, we've got a quick. I do also want to show you though. We have, so being that it's a UJAM product, we do have some crazy sound design stuff in here with our finishers. So we do have a finisher knob in the middle, and this product, the series actually in general, the Symphonic Elements series, offers so much sound design potential because you have basically two effects modules on each side of the instrument, the low and the highs, which I could demonstrate that in a minute. And then a finisher on top of everything. So you can get crazy results and completely turn brass into, say, a pad or completely like an atmosphere, or we have like all these pop and electronic stuff that I could dive into. But there's really just a lot of actually useful stuff. Whether you're composing a piece or score, or you're just producing, there are a lot of really cool sounds in here that you can layer under your instrumental or on top of the instrumental or mix as like an atmosphere. And so most of that craziness is coming from the finisher because, as you can understand, the root content here is just brass. It's natural brass recordings. And so anything you hear that's like super electronic or designed is coming from our finishers or our effects.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but let me, there's a sequence category too, which I really like. And sequence is sort of, they're rhythmically manipulated, but not so much in a way that makes it unusable. So this category is actually still really useful for tension in your compositions, or I'm just going to play a couple examples. You get a little bit of pumping, but we did want to keep it clear that there is a separate electronic and dance category. So these ones are a little more cinematic feeling usually. Like some really cool ones. Honestly, brass is similar to a sawtooth wave in the nature of the sound. So you can get some really, really electronic and thick sounds that are just super full. So that's the one thing I do really like about the instrument in orchestral context. It's really useful. And you get some totally weird stuff too. The big groover. So yeah, I'm wondering if I should just maybe go through some of the effects, or I'm not sure. So here's a first approach. I guess if you're completely new to this instrument, the best way to think about it is we had Boris Salcho, who's a composer. He basically took all the samples and he wrote all of these pieces that are usable and cover a vast range of needs. And that's where you find them in the styles menu. So like I said, if I turn off all of the effects here, we can just hear the raw styles, and you'll really start to hear, the root content. And then from there, it's kind of a starting point of what you can do. So like we have a basic category that's an introduction. These are some of your basic needs. And so the basic category will contain some rhythmic, it will contain some sustained, and so on.
Hey, Adam.
Yes.
Kind of a question here. When you're playing right now on your keyboard, are you triggering those triads, or is that a one note that triggers a triad?
I was actually manually playing. Yeah, so when I'm playing an A minor here, I'm playing all three notes only because if I don't have a key set and I press an A, it'll play an A major. So it does interpret. So the simplest way to play this is just pressing a key. Like I can easily do this, and it's playing full chords. So it does interpret single notes into chords, but I didn't set a key. So if I were to set a key here, I wouldn't have to do that. So now I press one key and it's A minor, but I just hadn't done it, so I was just manually. I'm also a pianist, so I kind of just naturally do that.
Got it. It was just a question that came up.
Yeah, no, all good. Yeah. So if you pick a key, it will interpret your chords within your key rather than just making everything major. So that's one of the benefits of our products. I think almost all the virtual instruments, except for obviously drums, do this. So you can pick a key, and it's great if you're a beginner, you don't know exactly what chords to play. You can just press keys and it'll basically always work within the context. Even if you do some weird stuff, D7. Like it starts to get a little creative. I think there are some exceptions, I want to say. Like there are some phrasings in the C major scale where it'll play like a B flat or an E flat, because those are the two that could still work in certain contexts. So it's not too, we really wanted it to not be too restrictive. You could still be creative and still have it sound great within your song. But I'm going to just turn it off because I prefer to just play whatever I play. But so real quick, back to the styles. So the basic category is a bit of an overview, but then we have it organized in a way that's useful to the user. So depending on the part you're looking for. So you might say, oh, I know I want brass sounds, but what exactly are you looking for? Are you looking for rhythmic riffs, or are you looking for long sustains or crescendos? Or are you looking for melodic stuff, like things that have implied melodies or motifs? And then we also have a category called modern here, which is kind of a little bit weirder. Some of them are normal, so they're like brass parts composed for a pop piece, so it sounds just kind of bare bones and like trumpets and stuff. But some of these are edited because in creating these styles, Boris had the ability to tweak sample starts and sample ends, make them sound really choppy and artificial. So that's where this category comes into play. But I'm going to just go through some examples of raw styles really quick. So we'll start here in the rhythmic category. I'll start with Cinematic Riff 1. Pretty standard. And then we'll jump around a bit. You heard the Zimmer riff before, I believe.
Got like cool Pirates of the Caribbean vibes, I feel like.
Exactly, yeah. That is kind of this. That's kind of what we're going for there. Let's see some other stuff that's a little different. And so another thing actually to note is that in the styles define what instruments are involved. So if you think about a brass section, we've got trumpets, French horns, trombones, bass trombones, cymbassos, that kind of thing. Those instruments are all in this title, but they don't all play in every style. So you really do get completely different arrangements when you pick a style. So you'll notice this one, it doesn't have as much low end in it. It probably doesn't have tubas or bass trombones. I hear maybe horns, trumpets, and maybe regular trombones. I'm not sure exactly what's in this one. But you could switch to a different one and get a completely different. Like that one clearly has a tuba or something in the low end there. So that's a really cool thing. You can really play around and find exactly what you're looking for by just listening. And the other fun thing in this rhythmic category here, we have two styles. So obviously when making this product, we wanted it to work really well with the series. Otherwise, what's the point, you know? So we made two styles that are exactly copies of a string style. So the strings product has these styles called big riff and full chords. So Boris created a style for those that exactly match, but for brass. And there are subtle variations, like what would a brass ensemble do differently than strings. So it really fills out the whole sound. And when you play them side by side, like I said, with even the same MIDI, it's just immediately super full sound. And that's actually the demo I'm going to do in a minute. I'm just playing basically matching styles. But the reason we didn't create more than only two is because, honestly, all of them sound pretty good. So you can load any of these with any strings thing, and it sounds pretty good and almost usable right out of the box. So we didn't really nail that into the ground too much just because we felt we didn't have to.
We got a question from Philip Allen and some other people, and it's obviously we're hearing a lot of different instruments playing at the same time to achieve these styles. Is there any way to solo individual instruments if someone was looking to do that?
So, no, you cannot single out a specific instrument. What you can do, though, and this is helpful, is like I mentioned before, you have these low and high brass sections. If you're familiar with strings and drums, it's the same premise. So if I'm playing a piece here and I know I don't want highs at all, I'll disable the highs. And then I have this MIDI bass part, and with some styles, it will only be one instrument. So sometimes you do have that kind of control. But actually, I think this one is just one instrument here. But sometimes the instruments change from phrase to phrase. In this one, it sounds like it's actually just the same instrument. So some of the styles are bare bones on the two sides. That might only be a trumpet on the right, and it might only be a tuba on the left. So, but in general, the answer is no. You have to sort of pick between lows and highs, but those are predetermined for you. And one thing that I really like is sometimes when I was making presets, and I was adding effects, some of the high sounds were so dominating. You know, the high instruments are always a little louder to the human ear. So you have a crossfader here. Same thing as the other two titles, where you can kind of seamlessly cross between. Let me go to a more aggressive style phrase. So I can kind of navigate more towards the highs until it's only the high brass, and same for the other side. So you can kind of find your sweet spot there, and only take a little bit of something, and so on. But yeah, to answer the question, you can't exactly pick a specific instrument, because it just didn't fit into the way the engine works. But you can solo sides, and you can more or less pick out what you're looking for. And if one style doesn't do it, there are so many styles. That's another thing, actually. This title, I want to say it has something like 76 or 78 styles in it. And I believe that's much more than we did in strings. I think strings had around 50 or 60.
On that note, Adam,
yeah.
we got a couple of questions. One's from Dance Fix, and that is, do you know offhand the size of the disk space required for this instrument? And another question that's come up a couple of times, specifically from David McPoland, is there's a little bit of confusion between styles and presets, and perhaps if you can walk us through that just a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, okay, first question, installer size. So I think the PKG, once you open it and it's installing to your computer, it looks for around 6.3 or 6.4 gigabytes of space. Because like I said, these are real recordings in the instrument, and they are sometimes long sustains. So it's a bit of content, but we do have ways to move that. So our instruments operate on a file structure that uses these blob files, where all the content is stored. And so there is a way to move that to a hard drive and redirect the plugin to it. So you don't have to clog up your system memory or anything with the size of the instrument. But so the other question was styles and presets. Yeah, so basically you can think of the styles as the parts. So it's a starting point. So let's say we pick a brass part. So it's an arrangement. That's the one we like. But then once we start adding effects and changing volumes, or even crossfading between them, or so on, and even global volume as well. Basically, anything you tweak to the sound can get saved in a global preset. So if I were to change styles here, it would stay the same above it. So all the effects, like let's say I loaded a preset over here, you'll see all these effects change, the values. If I then changed a style, this preset stays the same, but the style changes. So it's basically changing the instruments involved and the rhythms they're playing. So if I liked the tonality of this preset, but not the style, I could scroll through them and look for one that I think is a little bit more suitable to my production. So I hope that's a little more helpful. And also you can save user presets. So if you like one of the globals but you want to change something about it, you can save as, and it gets thrown into your own user category down here.
Okay.
But yeah, so basically anytime you're changing global presets, that's a macro, everything is changing, including styles.
Right.
Whereas styles are just the parts.
All right, I've got a couple more questions that if we can just bang out real quick.
Yeah, totally.
From Keycrafter, is there a Winds plugin coming down the pipeline at some point? I know that's about future stuff, and that's always a delicate subject on the streams, but it's just something we got to ask because someone asked it. So feel free to say no comment.
I can give a little more than no comment, but it's not that helpful. It's pretty much the same answer. We don't exactly know what the next one is.
Okay.
We have talked about things. There are ideas that can still be added to the series in a meaningful way, but we do feel like, or at least I do, I feel like these three titles are really the meat of it. You know, these are kind of the main things you definitely need. So now that these are done, like basically what I mean is the ideas we've considered to me have not been as substantial. I'm not sold yet on how we're going to do it, but there are, we've considered winds or other percussive elements or choirs or something, but there's nothing concrete yet, and we don't exactly know how to go about it because these titles, compared to our other series, they're a little more complicated to figure out instrument design wise because the phrasings are so different. So within a series at UJAM, typically they behave the same. So in Virtual Guitarists, you're still just playing a guitar. So once we figure out that instrument engine, the behavior doesn't really change. But in this series, we're going between completely different instruments, and we try to keep it in the same layout. So it actually is a little bit more challenging. So like the behavior of brass is very different than strings. So it's kind of hard to hash out exactly how we're going to do it for some of these sounds. But we are still considering, we're always working on what can be next in the series, and there are ideas, but I can't really say right now if or what will be next.
Okay, we got a lot of we call them suggestions or gentle hints about wins. I'm seeing wins with 3 eyes.
Lots of wins. Okay,
yeah, wins
okay.
just everywhere. I don't know if you want to take that as what you.
Let me write it down. Yeah.
Another question, and it's a great question, is the finisher in brass similar to or pull from the same as this finisher standalones?
Okay, interesting. Yeah, you mean the finisher products?
Yeah.
So the premise is the same. They behave in a similar way. Obviously, so in our finisher, let me open one actually, because I'm not sure that everybody here will know the finishers. So let me just open up one of our finishers. Let's do Dynamo, because that's actually the one I did. So with Dynamo, and actually with the finisher series in general, so you have this infamous big knob in the middle. That's what you see in brass. And actually, I think I've enabled Ableton so I can load them at the same time. Yeah. So you have the main big knob here, and that's the brunt of the effect. So it's a multi-effect chain that is designed by one of our sound designers. And so as you're increasing this parameter, many things are happening, and every position on the finisher is unique. So it's not just a dry wet, it's actually a little different along the way. That is the same behavior in the finisher series. The only difference is that the finisher series gives you 4 vary knobs that control different aspects of each effect. So if I change finisher modes, these things change. Sometimes they're the same, like this one is always the same on this product. But so the finisher series gives you a little more control over the effects that it offers because it's a standalone effect plugin. So we definitely had to give you a little more control, and it's very useful control. But so in the SE series, you don't have those 4 vary knobs. You pretty much just have finishers organized into categories, and it's mainly just the big knob. And the modes themselves are new, so they're not taken from any of our finisher titles. That's something we are trying to work out because we want to be able to use them. Like there are some that are successful on certain types of sounds. So we want to be able to reuse them when necessary. But for now, they're just new designs. We have the same framework, and basically the sound designer goes through and he designs things that would be good for brass. And then we test them and we go through iterations of approving them. A handful of these are similar to ones in strings or even the same, but they've been revised. So a couple of the mastering ones, they're kind of overall, this is a good opportunity to go through these folders a little. But so they're organized based on application again. So master, these are the more subtle effects that you would throw on the top. It's just kind of a subtle sweetening. I'm going to play again just some examples because I know it's easier to hear. But so you have some subtle sweetening. So I'll just play and go through some of these. Actually, this is the wrong UI. It's a different instance. All right, there we go. Let's go back to this preset. So yeah, let's see. Like this one's called Clean Me Up. So it's subtle, but you can hear it kind of tightening. It brings things in a little, and it's like a little tiny bit of compression. There, we wrote out all the descriptions of the modes in the user manual if you're curious what's actually happening. That one's a bit more. It makes kind of the trebles a little more pronounced. Smoothener. Actually sounds less bright in that one. So these ones are super, and then tape is actually maybe one of the more drastic ones in this category, but So it kind of emulates a little bit of a tape effect. But so the mastering category is pretty straightforward. It's kind of more for natural, like if you just want brass sounds, but you want to make them sound a little better for your production, that's where you would look. The move category, these are mostly rhythmic, but they're not like choppy. They're more like pumping and flowing and reversing. So it's kind of like fluid movement. And I'll just play a couple of these as well. And actually, I'm going to switch to a sustain just because it might be easier to hear. So this is a reverse one. It actually, we have 3 different lengths there. So depending on the time period you want to take that reverse sample, that just changes the length. So this one actually turns brass into percussion, which is kind of fun. And like I said, you can go anywhere in between. So you can kind of have like a subtle bit of percussiveness, but it just sounds a little weird. It doesn't sound like fully like it's percussion. Let's see. This one is actually one of my favorites, the Terminator tape bend. Actually, I don't know why I said tape. It's just Terminator bend. Let me put on some of these styles. You might notice references like Batman and Inceptor. Very fun. So this one, if I turn it up, you get kind of an iconic.
Oh, nice.
Which is super cool. That's one of my favorite modes. It's cliche, kind of Terminator, you know, it's just very fun.
No, cliche, no.
Not cliche, I meant, you know, like famous. Like
There
it's
you go.
It's the one that you're looking for. What else do we have in here? Drama Swell. So that one's a little more natural. It's just like adds a little more dynamic. But I think there are some crazy moving ones like Ducker. It's very cool. So I'll move to the next category, which is tone. Kind of like master, this is not doing anything rhythmic. It's changing the tone of the instrument, but in a little bit more of a drastic way. I'm going to switch back to a rhythmic one as an example. Kind of got that old vintage feel. A little trippy there. And then this one's actually another one of my favorites, Monster Bass. This one, I could pick a style that has a little more low end in it to show you.
Can I request a style?
Absolutely.
Batman. It's Batman.
Oh, Batman. Yeah. Let's hear Batman. Where's Batman at the top of the list? Yeah, actually, this might be a good one to show you the monster bass, too. So it's got that long swell and then that resolving hit, which is really satisfying. But let's hear this monster bass. There you go. Very satisfying. I love that.
Yeah, wow.
So what else is in here that's worth showing you? There's some fun things. Our sound design guy loves to make these crazy, like, he likes to turn instruments into other instruments, which is amazing. So this is called the organizer. So it almost sounds like a church organ in a cathedral or something. And then we've got a historic is another kind of retro thing. We've got a fifth thing, kind of implies a fifth. Which actually sounds amazing. Yeah, and then glitch. So this category is also rhythmic, like move, but instead of smooth pumping and swelling, it is glitching and gating and like a more aggressive stuff. So you can expect this to not sound like brass pretty much. Like that's an instant dance track. R2 flange 2, this is one of my favorites. Turns your brass into a cute robot. And then this one's also very fun. Yeah. And so let's beyond. So this is the last category. These ones are basically everything that we created that didn't fit nicely into those categories because they do multiple things. So this category is more complex, that you can expect very weird results, even though some of the glitch ones also, but beyond is really over the top. And they're kind of for fun, you know. So you've got this thing called time warp. Which would be fun to automate if you wanted to. Pretty trippy stuff in here. What else? Which is my favorite? Here's another one that turns brass into a different instrument, this time being like a synth. Like an ambient synth. Great for making atmospheres and pads. Which is actually maybe a good chance to... I don't know if there are any requests to see. If there are requests coming up to see certain things, just let me know. But I could show the atmospheres category. I didn't really get into that.
100%. I mean,
because...
just keep rocking. Real quick question while you're loading up the next one, though, is Dr. R. Jez is wondering if it's MPE compatible.
MPE compatible. This one I don't believe is.
Okay.
That's something, there's a list of things that we are working on to figure out, and that is one of them, and it could be soon, but yeah, right now, not at the moment.
All right. Another question from Jazz D is there any way to upgrade to the Symphonic Elements bundle if you own strings? And Jazz, I believe you can. Killian's going to check for you right now on Plugin Boutique, and if it is available, he'll post a link for you in the chat. Definitely head over to Plugin Boutique, though, if you want to check out strings or brass or any of the Symphonic Elements, including the bundles, are all available there. Also, for everybody that's just joining us, we're here with Adam from UJAM, and we're checking out their brand new instrument called BRAAASS in the Symphonic Elements series of plugins and instruments from them. And we're going to be giving some copies of some things away along the way. And all you need to do to enter to win is be active and positive in the chat, whether that's asking questions or just being cool. We're going to pick a few random winners at the end and get you some plugins just for being involved. But with that, Adam, please continue doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I just wanted to show a couple of atmospheres because, I mean, you saw how the brass can turn into pads or synths or whatever, but atmospheres are kind of cool because a lot of these, when I went through them and we created them, I kind of was like, wow, I can actually hear this as an ambience in a score or in some kind of scene that you're trying to write to. And so there are some really cool ones in here. That one's almost a little more paddy. But you've got some weird stuff happening that's very ambient that you could turn way down in volume and mix into the background. I actually just played this one. Let's go to, which is a good one here. This one's pretty cool.
I'm a sucker for subs, man. That's
yeah. So we have actually, I could go over the character effects too because we do have a sub-octave effect in here. Yeah, I didn't touch on these at all actually, which I could do. But yeah, we have the monster bass finisher, which is a crazy bass enhancement, and then there's also a sub-octave. So I noticed this preset is using both. So lots of intense bass in this one. But this one's super suspenseful for me. I can almost hear this already in like a film. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of the atmospheres. Definitely check them out. And by the way, all of our stuff is free for 30 days to try. So there's no reason not to download a trial and see what's in here that you might like. So I definitely encourage you to check out what we have. But yeah, I think let's look at the effects real quick because we touched on the finisher. One quick thing I can look at then, I guess, is the atmospheres. So I guess let's turn off all these crazy effects so we could hear. I do want to identify a couple of things that are different between strings and brass here. So, but I already mentioned the ambiences, so let's stay on track. I'm getting a little distracted. So ambiences, we have a list of ambiences here that are creative reverbs, some more natural, based on impulse responses. Some of them are algorithmic with a little modulation, and they're organized from shorter to longer decay, just for your convenience. And then at the bottom, you have typical delays, some feedback delays, and some more fun delays like tape echoes. So I'll just go through a couple of these. Let me just pick a rhythmic one. Make sure I have a good rhythmic style loaded up, so it's easiest to hear. Actually, you know what? We might be in time. Let's go cinematic riffs. Just trying to find a good one to use here. That's a good one. Okay. So, yeah, so we'll start at the beginning and I'll just play with the reverb so you can hear the kind of sounds that it offers. Those are the two shorter ones. This is one of my favorite ones. Super rich. And I mean, when they're at 100%, you do have a crazy amount of reverbs. Could be cool for atmospheres or pads, but I typically like to go around the 60% or 50% mark. And then let's jump to some more fun ones here. Space Infinite, this is a massive one. I'm actually curious, I don't think I've tried this yet. I want to put Inceptor through Space Massive. Let's just experiment a little. Excuse me while I play a tiny bit.
No, please, by all means.
Monster Bass, let's turn on the sub enhancement to sub octave. So you can see it's already super inspiring and fun when you're playing with it. Yeah, crazy. Big sounds. Yeah, and then you've got delays. So I'll go through a couple of these. I should probably go back to a rhythmic style. Turn off. Here's a good example of when I want to turn the low off. You've got all ping pongs of all different types of lengths and rhythms. Tape echoes, kind of fun. Yeah, ambiances are pretty straightforward. So you could take a look and see there are a couple of reverbs. I think there's 10 or 12. And then you've got maybe 8 to 10 different delays. But one thing to note, though, is that the natural sound of the brass is, like, don't undermine or underestimate the natural sound of the instrument, because they are real recordings. So there is, and being that they're brass, there is inherently a bit of reverb in the recording in the natural room. And they were recorded, I think it was called Lyndhurst Hall in London. And so which is known for its crazy sound. So the raw sound, you'll notice there's a little room and reflection in there, and it has to, because that's how natural brass is.
And they sound super crispy.
Yeah, they're really amazing. And so when going through these ambiances, I was kind of like, we went through a lot of options, and some of them were like kind of almost worse because the natural sound was so good. And I was like, it doesn't really make sense to put this type of reverb over this amazing reverb. It just kind of muddies it. So we did pick the ones that were the best and offered the most variation between them. So there are some definitely cool, they're super cool, and they're also very good for when you're doing some crazy sound design. But really quick then, let's touch on these effects. So if you're a strings user or a drums user, you're familiar with this idea of character and motion effects. Each separate section has them, and they're the same options from each menu, but they only affect those sections. And so the character effects are kind of similar to the tone finishers, but a little less severe. You can think of these as like single effects, whereas a finisher is a multi-effect chain. So you're going to get unique stuff out of the finisher, but this is kind of more if you're looking for something. So you'll see the first few options are very simple, kind of EQ or filter-oriented stuff. You have low boost, mid-cut, high boost, this kind of stuff. Low pass. You do have like a nice A lot of these are fun to automate, and you do have a nice low pass with a higher resolution or resonance, which does some cool stuff on brass sounds. Band pass, high pass, these are all straightforward. I love comb filters because you can get super different tones out of them.
Who doesn't like comb filters?
I don't know. I love it though. And then radio, you got some vintage retro looking stuff. What else we got here? We got there are a lot of distortions and saturations in here as well. So like a tube amp or a fuzz distortion adds a lot of meat to it. And here's fuzz. And yeah, an amp and saturation. I'm not going to go through all of these. There are some parallel options. So it's adding it parallel to the dry signal rather than replacing. So you have the same fuzz. You have a drive and a distortion. You've got a lo-fi, which is awesome. Sort of like a bit reduction. And bit crush, filter crush. Sub-octave is the one I was going on and on about. And you do have this little harmonic thing, which is interesting. Kind of gets pitchy in like a weird way. Very fun. And you have some more utility-based stuff. So there's pan. You can pick which side, where in the stereo field you want to lay the sound. And then rumble's another one that I really do like. Very much filling out the mids and low mids and kind of super cool. Yeah, so those are character effects. They are the same on both sides, but affect the two sides separately. Motion effects, again, are kind of similar, like similar to move in the finisher section. These are mostly reversing, tremolo, gating, pumping, this kind of stuff. There's a long list here, and you can imagine what most of these do, as some of them are pretty standard, but they're just fun to play with. And this is where you'll really start to get different sounds if you're trying to design something. What else can we show? Filter pumps are great.
Only Adam, a person named only Gabriel just said that there's the meat again. The deli is open. I have to confirm. I have to confer. It's nice.
The deli is wide open with this title. Absolutely. Yeah, we're 24/7 with this deli.
Nice.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, there are a lot of modes to combine for that effect, like rumble, monster bass, sub-octave. It's crazy. And the brass is already... So that's also like the main theme here. You know, brass is the meat. You know, you add brass. And actually, I think it's a good time to show you the context here.
While you're pulling that open, Adam, another question that inevitably comes up on every one of our dev streams is the CPU usage on, you know, 1 or 2 or 3. I think you've got 3 different plugins open in the sequence you're about to show us. Can you speak to a little bit about that? I mean, it's essentially just playing back samples. So, I mean, on top of, you've got a lot of effects processing in there as well. So perhaps just guide us through if it's CPU friendly or what.
Totally. I would say that it is. So I actually have 4 instances here. And in my testing, I haven't run into a problem where I notice it being more heavy than any other virtual instrument I use that is widely accepted. So I think it's pretty in line with expectations. And so the one thing I do notice, though, is we have nice visual feedback when stuff plays, the meters. And actually, it could be that I'm streaming here too, but the one thing I do notice sometimes is when the UIs are open, that obviously draws higher CPU too. And so that actually, sometimes those meters are choppy or they don't look as nice as the single one did. That's the only thing I really noticed. Otherwise, I have 4 instances here, and they're all ready to play a symphony that I've arranged. And it's very, very bare bones. I did like a general 1, 5, 6, whatever chord progression. And like I said, same MIDI on strings. And this is actually, I believe I did an example like what I mentioned before, where the style matches. So we had those 2 styles in brass that match strings. This is one of them. It's called full chords. And you'll hear what I mean. And then drums, I have 2 drums tracks just because, I don't know, I might not have picked, I'm not a symphonic composer, but I don't know, I didn't really feel great about the selection I made, so I added a little one-shot stuff on a different track and mixed it a little differently. But yeah, I'm just gonna play through this so you can hear the context. And I want to preface this by saying that I've never been more impressed by any series of instruments by any company in getting this actually professional sound from just 3 tracks. Just wanted to preface that's a personal hot take, very hot take.
Before,
But
well,
like to me, this sounds like it's ready for Hollywood cinema, and that's
Oh, wow.
crazy because even the modern instruments that I use, I produce like electronic stuff. You can get cool effects from just 3 tracks, but they don't sound anywhere near like mixed. You know what I mean? And this is just so full that I'm gonna play an example. And at first, I want to play it with the brass disabled. So this is basically what UJAM had to offer before this release, which sounds amazing, but I just think you don't know how amazing it can get until you hear it. So here's just strings and drums. So super cool, and it does already sound pretty professional. But something about it is missing, you know, and it's been requested a lot. And when we add it in, to me, it's just like, wow, obviously that was missing, you know? So I'll run it back. Actually, let me make sure. So it's funny, this is actually not even the right preset, but let's see how it sounds. Actually, I want to do that after. I want to make sure that I can impress everybody real quick. What was it called? Full chords. So this is how it was. Here we go. So hopefully you noticed, I'll do a quick on and off comparison of the last 2. So without brass, with brass. Just sounds full now. You know, something was missing, the foundation was missing. And I actually want to jump back to this wrong preset because it sounded cool to me, actually. Trusty horns. And that's exactly what I was saying. A lot of these presets will work anyway. So I just wanted to hear how this sounded. So that's a blind preset, and to me, that even sounds like it was made for it. So very cool, very cool stuff.
They're definitely working really well together. I also want to just, you were saying that you made a second drum track just to add. You wanted to do a thing a little bit there. I mean, that's a perfectly reasonable and great way to approach these. You don't necessarily have to use it right out of the box. I mean, that's. I think
for sure. Yeah. It's a great starting point. Yeah, I think what I did was I changed the style and found a different one of the metal one-shots. So in drums, there are common phrases and style phrases, but each style kind of changes the instrument selection again. And so these change too. So I think I just found one that I liked, and I think it was like a one-note. Yeah, and I panned it hard left. So when you have it without that, the drum part was just like this. And I added that in. Just kind of helps it pump a little. But yeah, totally valid point though. Yeah, you can duplicate this, pick out certain parts, and kind of going back to what that user mentioned about not getting to pick your specific instrument. You can find something in the style and solo it, and then duplicate it and open something else and pan it differently. And like you can really use them in any way you want. And that's kind of what I did with drums here. Yeah. Yeah. But so yeah, that is I think that's a pretty solid overview of brass. And actually, let me think. Did I not touch on anything? Oh, okay. There's one control I forgot to mention. Let me open the UI. I forgot to mention that's different than strings. So if you're a strings user, you might be wondering about this shape control. So in strings, it was a decay control, and this is where the different instrument natures come into play here, because with strings, they're mostly transient, for the rhythmic stuff. And so the decay is really what you want control over. Is it ringing out too long? Sometimes strings are very rhythmic. So controlling this decay here will actually tuck away some of that tail and sustain. And you can link them between the sections or unlink them. Same premise here in brass, except instead of a decay, you get kind of a bipolar thing similar to drums, where in drums here, we have a shape control. So that's where we renamed this control. And the left side is transient attack, and the right side is kind of smoothed. And so in brass, it's pretty similar to that, except the difference is that in testing, we found that a user would really want to be able to scroll through almost the sample start time, because these are recordings. This is a multi-sampled instrument. So going to the left becomes more transient, but it actually eats into the sample. So it will sound a little more artificial if that's what you're looking for. And then the right side is kind of the opposite. It's getting a longer attack in a more natural way. So I can show a quick example of how that sounds real quick, because it is super useful when you're designing presets or trying to go for something specific. Got to turn off the effects and the high side. So I'm going to link them so both sides are affected simultaneously. So that's the most transient it gets, and it's actually, I forget how many milliseconds in, it might be like somewhere between 60 and 90 milliseconds into the sample. And then you can soften them instead. And of course, you can unlink them and do them separately too. So it really depends on what you're looking for. But that control functions a little differently in this title, so I just wanted to touch on it real quick. But yeah, otherwise the features on here, if someone in the stream has not seen the Symphonic Elements stuff at all, there's a micro timing menu here that's universal in our products. When you click it, you get swing control. And then you get a speed selection. So this is the default speed. You can make it play twice as fast or half as fast. So that's affecting the phrase player under the hood.
Yeah,
and that's the same in all the
actually,
titles.
It sounds really good. There doesn't seem to be any artifacting there, which is, kudos, shout out to UJAM and the people developing these.
Yeah, it's MIDI. It's probably because it's MIDI based, so it's not stretching samples or anything. It's just separating the phrases. So you're making the phrase twice as long or half as long, and it just sounds really great. Yeah.
User or viewer Luck Therault is wondering if the transient setting where you were adding, you were moving where the play cursor was or the starting position was, is that automatable in the DAW?
I think it is. Let me take a look. Should be. If it has, yes. So if it has learn MIDI CC, then yes, it is. So this one you can control for sure. Same with the crossfading and the focus EQs. Pretty much everything except I don't remember if you can automate the style selection. I don't think you can, but that's something that we were kind of like up in the air about anyway. We don't know if we wanted to offer that. But yeah, you can automate that. You can automate all these effects and everything. Trying to think, I just thought of something I wanted to show, but I'm forgetting and drawing a blank. Oh yeah, so focus EQ. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, while you were thinking of that, I would love to hear some of strings.
Oh sure, absolutely.
I don't think we need to go through all of, obviously, as we've already mentioned a couple of times, the UIs are more or less the same, if not the same, very similar and easy to navigate in that regard. But just maybe play some of the presets, the styles, and so forth, just so we can get a good idea about what this thing is capable of. I've heard this before. I believe last time we had UJAM on stream, this maybe it just come out, or maybe I'm mistaken, but I mean, it sounds absolutely fantastic, and I want people who are here to hear it.
Totally. I'll actually do the same for drums as well, because I forgot that not everybody here has probably played with them. So here is strings. I'm just going to go through some sounds, and we'll just have some heads down listening for a couple minutes. Oh, it'd be nice if I had it activated.
Let's turn it.
That was the max. So how's the volume there?
I think we can come up a little bit. I mean, I'm ready to hear this thing.
How's that?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, cool. So yeah, I'll just go through some riffs and some sustains and stuff. I forget what's in these half the time, so that's a fun one. Let's see, because there was actually, I think the first preset is really fun for me. It goes down like that half step, kind of give you that suspenseful. But let's look through some categories again. Motifs, these are fun. And keep in mind, I'm just playing the max intensity phrase. So in every preset you have a depth of different parts kind of to go through. But I'm just playing the most intense one, just FYI. And so these are from the motif category. So again, they're kind of melodic. So if you don't really know what you're writing and you want to be inspired, those are good for that. But let's see, let's get some ostinato. Let's see what these are like. And like always, you can turn off the sections. So, and I want to speak a bit candidly as a producer instead of a product owner. These instruments, so I've played with, contact libraries and different string sounds, and there are a lot of instrument libraries that offer you a boatload of control over the realism. You can kind of emulate a real performance manually. Some people, there's a time and a place for that. But this product series, to me, is super, super successful at like arrangement. So there are some phrase player instruments out there too, but this is like, to me, this sounds like I would never think to write this stuff. And that's mostly because Boris wrote that. Boris is a composer. So I would be like, wow, this is like a personalized library of bits and pieces that I can rely on to be professional. So I don't have to worry about arranging them. And it sounds really, really cool to me. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Like, I'm always inspired by this series as a personal producer.
I think we're all impressed, to be honest. I mean,
yeah.
I'm blown away.
Let me show real quick drums also, because drums is a very good time as well. I wish I knew. So I came on board this series for brass. I was not the product owner in the previous two, and strings actually came out quite some time ago. So I don't have the exact details on what instruments are in the ensembles. So I wish I could tell you exactly what's in these drum sections, but I would have to check. But so in drums, let's just play through some presets. So the structure is different. There are common phrases that are a bit... I'm doing the same thing. There we go. So the common phrases are like basic rhythms. So it's kind of like the basic section that I had in brass. So they're usually just like subdivisions. But then you have style phrases as well. And we'll go through a couple presets for fun. And if you produce like electronic or hip hop or trap music, these are really cool too. There's kind of like this this assumed integration of like orchestral stuff in some of this heavy electronic, like in the build-ups. You'll hear these like kind of tribal beats coming in the build-up, and they're really good at building tension for like modern productions too. I've used this a lot in some of my stuff. Yeah, so you do just have a ton of variety, and I'm not going to go through too many of them, but they're organized in ways that you might look for, you know, certain energies or certain styles, kind of. I don't want to say styles because we use that word to define these, but you know what I mean. Yeah, so that is a pretty solid overview of the Symphonic Elements series, and the latest edition is brass. And so hopefully everybody likes how it sounds, and I think it's super inspiring, personally. Again, try it for free for sure. 30 days free trial, and it's completely unrestricted when we do trials.
Nice.
But also there are tons of sales happening. So, but yeah, definitely check it out on Plugin Boutique. All of them are on Plugin Boutique as well, even Brass, which came out today. But yeah, I think that's pretty solid. We could also, I don't know if you want to take a look at some other UJAM stuff, or what if you have any direction or questions that got overlooked, maybe.
We got some questions we can bang out.
If you got yeah, shoot a couple.
This is
Might
more
inspire some more.
This is more of a feature request, I would say, than a question from Michael Felicis, and that is, in the future they would love to get like a playable instrument where you can play like the actual notes rather than a preset rhythm. Someone else earlier in the stream was saying something along the similar lines, so it's not just Michael in that regard.
Totally.
I mean they just sound so great, and yeah, so obviously
yeah,
the
totally.
more the merrier. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So there are certain certain manufacturers that do pride themselves on offering full control, and we're considering more and more of that as we develop and make new products. But in general, our main kind of thing at UJAM is like we don't want any hurdles between someone writing music that they like. So that's typically why a lot of our instruments are like this. But they're not all like this. You have some instruments in our catalog where you do control it fully. Like the new virtual guitars are super cool. You can even strum them like a real guitar. So we're working more, and I'm actually an advocate for that too. I'm more on like I prefer control side of things. So I try to really make those infusions when I can. But in this series, it just doesn't make sense to, because part of the success, I think, of having such an impactful sound and part to play with a single key is that they're pre-composed, because you have a professional writing them, you have professionals mixing them and recording them. So if we did offer the control, that's a benefit, but I think you would lose certain things too. And so it's something we definitely consider. And I would love to maybe play with an idea like that in the future, where we do symphonic stuff with a little more control, but in a simple way. That could be really cool. So I'll definitely consider that and relay the feedback. I think it's common feedback though, for sure.
Nice. Another thing that I've seen a few times throughout the stream in the chat, and that is the people requesting the NKS support. Yeah, go ahead if you want to speak on
another thing. Yeah, that's another thing that we're looking into. We've got this backlog of things that we really want to hash out, and that I think it just needs further testing, because on one end I've heard that at least the key coloring is compatible NKS wise, but that might not actually be true. So it's kind of like up in the air, and I definitely want to. I thought about that over the development of this too, and it's definitely something to look into. But I don't see it as something that we can't do, so definitely going to hop on that.
Guitar Tommy is wondering, in a similar vein to brass and strings, and can you create your own drum patterns, or are they, I'm guessing it's a little bit different than the strings and the brass. Can you speak to that?
Do you mean, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So
you mean
instead
drums
of
versus...
Well, I mean, like, instead of just a fully robust percussive instrument that has 3 different types of drums playing at the same time, are you able to start programming on an individual level, similar to what people are saying about the
For the
strings.
other two.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's the same premise. So they're grouped. You have the same control again over low, high, and crossfading. And same thing as like some styles have fewer instruments on each side. So
Right.
it's the same premise though, because we really want to be consistent with the series. And in a way that doesn't really compromise things. So, I mean, you could do something like what I did. You know, I singled out sounds that I was looking for, and I manually programmed them in with the MIDI. And so that's kind of how I would approach it. And to me, it's not that big of a burden. I think it's kind of cool, especially if you ran into CPU issues, it would get annoying. But I think that we're pretty good here. So
I would say
yeah.
that.
So
I mean, if I could just jump in, part of the magic of UJAM and, in my opinion, the Symphonic Elements series are my favorite. But the magic is exactly what you've done here. Is just you've got some chords, looks like a bass line, and you feed that into both of those, and they just jive so well together. Even if you flip to a new preset. And, you know, the number of combinations you'll get out of these and the number of different ways you can start to customize once you really get in and dive in, I think that's the magic of them, I would say.
Totally. That's actually kind of the premise behind all of our virtual instruments that have phrase players, which is all of them actually. So the reason why we do that is because we have this vision where like someday we can just generate songs so easily. We want to universalize the content we've already made. So we want to be able to use things together in like a super inspiring way and just like generate new tracks super easily. And that's what musicians should be able to do. And so that's kind of what we're aiming towards. You know, there are a lot of companies in the industry focusing more on like crazy unique sound design or crazy precision and accuracy in editing the sounds and stuff like that. And we are kind of taking a bit of a different approach. We're kind of almost more compositional and arrangement oriented, I would say, with the MIDI stuff going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Which makes it super inspiring because you just hear a different song and you're like, wait, that's a good idea. And then you run with the idea and you're left with a great song.
100%.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it on the question front.
Okay. I mean, I think it's worth maybe touching on a couple of our more recent products just for those who are here that don't really know us, maybe.
100%.
So I do want to mention we had so we're pretty aggressive with our release model. We come out with new products just about every month.
Which
And
is pretty much unheard of for people who don't know. When you say kind of aggressive, that is, I don't know how it's being done. I don't know how big the team is, but it is astounding. Not only that, you come out with them pretty, it's like a regimen. It's almost like you can guarantee a new one's going to be out every month, but there's no loss in quality even at that speed. So it's a truly impressive feat, I have to say.
Totally. Yeah, totally. That's something that blew me away when I first joined. I was like, wow, at first I was like, okay, one a month. All right. And then I kind of learned over time, nobody, like I had worked at other audio software companies and no one does that. Like some of them don't release products for a year or two. And I'm just like, okay. So we're doing something a little differently here, that allows us to have more of a workflow with new ideas and stuff. And I think that's a really cool way to do it. But yeah, like I said, we're about once a month. We're shooting to put stuff out. So, and actually, we just did a freebie. So if anyone has heard, we have a new USynth synthesizer engine. It's UJAM's take on the synthesizer. I think we did a plugin boutique stream. Peter, I think, did it.
Indeed. Well, it was actually a group affair. There was, I believe, Christoph was involved. A few people. Yannick, I think, was on as well in the beginning. It was quite a. It's quite a live stream.
I think I remember watching it. I was a viewer that time. And so, yeah, so that was the introduction when we first released it. So the technology in USynth is a little new for our plugins, and you can even see in the design, like I just love how our design is getting even crispier than it was. Like this is just such a beautiful design. And so we have this new framework where different synth titles that you purchase will populate within the same frame here. And so you can switch between completely different synth titles. So you could pick one here and it'll change up the UI and it'll change up everything I clicked on the same one, my bad. And it'll change up everything in here. And these designs are like, I have a very keen eye on design. Not that I'm a designer, but I love when something looks right. And to me, these are just super impressive and cohesive looking. They're just beautiful. So each of these titles has different approaches. You know, you've got electronic dance. You've got Deluxe is my favorite. It's like vibrant soul, kind of like vintage. Like sometimes when I produce like lo-fi stuff, I love to go here.
Go
So
ahead.
basically
Let's
the
have a
preset,
jam.
let's have a jam. Yeah, yeah. But the preset browser is just like you can see also through the titles. So if I click one, I can then see all the presets. So you have all your stuff in one place. And this is a little sneak peek of where we want to go with things, you know? Just we want to make things super streamlined for the user. So yeah, I'm just going to play some random stuff. Again, I'm not the product owner on this series, but I'm really impressed with how it came out, and the team did a really great job. And my actually favorite thing about this, there you can watch the other video breakdown, but it's very, like I said, we kind of pride ourselves on making things quick and easy to use without completely compromising control. So most synthesizers you learn are like over the top, in my opinion. Like I have Serum that I use, which is my favorite now, only because I've learned it so much that I'm afraid to try something new. And so that's kind of, you don't have that problem here because in USynth you have three basic modules. The synthesizer is only the middle here. It's 5 knobs, and that's the whole synth. So you combine those ADSR and filters into one knob. A dark and bright knob, and then a fast and slow. And so basically the synthesizers in these titles, there are a preset list of basically synth modules that are saved in here. So these are the bass sounds. And all these bass sounds have 3 unique controls to them. So you do have control over what's happening. So if I scroll through the options, you'll see them changing. But so you'll also hear the auto wah. There's a finisher section that has a bunch of modules. But my favorite thing about USynth as a modern producer is that we have like a randomize function. So the presets and modules are great, but I love to use this because it'll give you results that not even our preset designers have thought of. And so I'll just like keep scrolling and scrolling and shuffling, and then I'll hear something, tweak it a little, and then save it. And I will just love the way it sounds. So if you hit, and you can adjust how random it gets. So at smaller volumes, you're mostly changing kind of tonal characteristics. And then at larger volumes, you're actually changing the effect. You're changing even the synthesizer module at 10. So if I hit a 10 and completely randomize, we'll get a totally different synth. Like totally inspiring. And there's a sequencer too, and you can control what gets randomized. Like if I know that I just didn't find a cool effect, I'll only keep that on, and I'll just like go through some of these. Yeah, totally cool stuff. I don't want to get too deep into like how USynth works because there are plenty of resources and the other stream to look at too.
Can I
but
just jump in real quick to let everybody
Absolutely.
watching know, right now on pluginboutique.com, you can grab USynth Drive for free. We have just posted a link. We're going to post another one as soon as Killian hears this. It's like a 20-second delay, but I mean, there's no reason not to jump in and grab the free drive, which is, I guess, what would you call it? It's like a preset pack, or is there a specific...
It is a full title. So it looks
title.
like it looks like it's a preset because it's got a similar UI and it loads in the same plugin. But you can imagine this approach is just the first time we've done that. Well, it's not. Yeah, it's the first time we've done this where we loaded basically a frame plugin. So instead of, if I go in my plugin manager, hopefully this isn't cut off on the stream. If I type in USynth here, you have USynth. You don't have USynth Drive, and you don't have USynth 2080. Right. You have just USynth, and it loads all the titles within it. So it's actually an architectural thing that we changed. So they're not preset packs. They are full instruments architecturally. They have their own blobs and installers and all that. Blobs are our content files. So, and then the second time we did this was Virtual Pianist, which is the product I was on. And so you'll notice that it's just called Virtual Pianist. It's not called Vogue, even though Vogue is the only one we've released so far. So it does load by default.
Nice.
Yeah, Vogue is amazing. This thing is amazing. I love how it turned out. But it's the same premise. If you click here, there will eventually be more titles. But right now, it is just Vogue. So you load that up, and then it'll just pretty much automatically pull Vogue, because so it does get defined like if whichever one I think is most recently installed. Don't quote me on that because I'm not on the USynth team, but I think it's whichever one is added, it'll default to that when you load the frame. But so that's kind of like, you can imagine where we plan to go with this approach with all of our series.
Gotcha.
So don't think of the USynth as packs. They're very much titles. We have sound designers making all the synth modules from scratch each time, and all the effects are new. The sequencer patterns, like everything is changing here. But the frame is the same and the layout is the same because, again, we don't want to confuse our users.
So with USynth, is it with USynth has gone away from the phrases that you have in strings and brass. So this one is an actually playable instrument.
Correct. So yeah, some of our series we do have. It's not that all of them are limiting in that way. So actually, Symphonic Elements is maybe the most limiting, only because they're compositions. But like even, for example, Virtual Pianist. So Virtual Pianist, and we've done this in the Guitarist as well. We have an instrument and a player mode. So in Pianist, this is a phrase player, just like this might be really quiet. I'm not sure.
It is a little quiet. I would love to hear more of it, though, if you could turn it up.
Yeah, let's just go through some. Exactly. And I'm in the strong and bright category. These are presets. So I could go into soft and dark. And again, so it functions the same. Our premise is the same here. You have the phrase key switches where they go up in intensity. But the one thing I do want to mention is that, same as Symphonic Elements, when I hit just one key here, it's playing a C5 here. So this isn't even a major chord. This is kind of like a dumb chord. And so once you pick a key here, and I'm actually noticing I have like a prototyped version here. So this is, I'm kind of noticing this isn't the real one. So it looks the same pretty much, but don't worry about any differences. But when you pick a key, it actually will play chords. C5. And so yeah, so it's the same premise though, phrase player, but in Vogue you have an instrument player. So this is just a piano now. And that's kind of like what I love. You can completely play, because it's a piano. It would be kind of silly to not offer users a piano, right? And so you have different character modes, totally different tonal sounds. And then the dark light slider actually adjusts the tonality even further. And it changes the visual, which I love. And then you've got finishers that are unique to the Pianist and ambiances. And so yeah, the Pianist series is amazing. I got a little derailed because I love this thing so much, but we were talking about the phrases. So yeah, Vogue has phrases. So I think Symphonic Elements is a little more limiting in the sense that you can't really tweak things because of how it's made. So like, let's say in Pianist, you like this phrase, but you want to change something about it. You can then grab this handle here and drag the MIDI into your DAW.
Brilliant.
Which this is not working because I have a prototype, so I apologize. But I could, if I had it installed properly, I guess I could get a different title, like the Guitarist Sparkle 2. Yeah, you can get the MIDI basically out, and it will put all the notes on the grid, and you can tweak them. You can remove them, lengthen them, or whatever. And so this is our new Guitarist. Let me try to get. So this is like a kind of like a pop guitar type thing. And so if I pick the style phrase and dragged it out here, here's the full MIDI. And you'll see these are all the notes. So I could like completely adjust them. The velocities, you could see how realistic they are too, you know, like everything is composed in a real manner and you can tweak them how you want. So my point though is that the other series that have these phrases typically have these handles that allow you to get the MIDI. So you can actually change them. And then there is also instrument mode. So you have way more control in some of these. But the reason we couldn't do that in Symphonic Elements is because it's multiple instruments. So you have a guitar that's just a guitar. So the way the samples are mapped chromatically are kind of consistent. But in brass and strings and drums every time you change the style, some instruments are excluded and some are brought in. So if we had some kind of MIDI export, it would sound kind of weird on every style because it would be optimized for the current style. And as soon as you change the style, it would sound unintentional. And we don't really want to present that to the user. We think that that actually is a downside. So, and then another example is the drummers. They have MIDI drag and drop as well. And so that's an example of an instrument that is technically multiple instruments that has MIDI drag and drop. But the difference is that they are drums. So it's pattern based. It's not changing notes. So that's why we can kind of do that here. And so this is hot. This is the another one of the products I did. This was my release before Brass. This is kind of like a top charts drummer. So it's like pop and kind of rap and like indie. But so these phrases you can, again, drag out. And then, so it's super easy to change the drum pattern, velocity-wise and kit-wise and all that. But yeah, so with Symphonic Elements, it doesn't really make sense because of how much more intricate the arrangements are. And we thought that maintaining that professional arrangement is much more important than allowing the user to like modify little notes, you know? So that's kind of the gist of it. But
Gotcha. But USynth, going back.
Oh yeah, you asked about USynth. I'm sorry.
It's all good, my friend.
So USynth does have, so there's a sequencer in USynth. So you're right. It is mostly, if I turn off the sequencer, I'm playing drums. If you turn off the sequencer, it's like a piano, pretty much, it's a keyboard. But if I turn the sequencer on, it does perform whatever part is selected. And you do have modifiers, so similar to our phrase players down here. I'm sorry, our phrase key switches. You have pattern adjustments. So these are like the same thing. You're kind of going through patterns. And then you can modify them like with the black keys here, times 2, times 3, times 4. That's a speed modifier. But the difference is that this one you cannot drag and drop out because it's a sequencer. It's not really creating MIDI, you know what I mean? So yeah, you're right in the sense that this is not really a phrase player. This is more of a synth, and I think it makes more sense that way for sure.
You said, what was it? Soul was or was it Deluxe was your favorite?
Personally, I love Deluxe, but I think it's because I have a personal preference of blues and oranges. Like I love the complementary. Like
okay, it's the color scheme.
No, but it's the sound too. I think when I like this is more of my go-to. There's a lot of dance stuff in here. Like Euphoria is really cool for like aggressive dance music. Very cool stuff in here. But I just personally don't produce within these realms as much. So I tend to go to Deluxe for like pads. And also Caramel is really cool. This is like a really good paddy kind of buttery sweet title. So each title has a set positioning, you know. So this Caramel one is meant for like paddy atmosphere kind of smoothness. There's dance staples. There's this kind of synthwave 2080 title. Core is one that's basically like studio essentials. So these are like the most classic synth sounds that you might be looking for. Deluxe is, like I said, vibrant soul keys. I use it for lo-fi. It's kind of cool. And then Drive, this is the one I wanted to mention because this released 7 days ago. And this one is completely free, like you mentioned. And it will always be free. This is the free title that we're offering everybody to get a taste of USynth. So definitely go download it for sure. It's on Plugin Boutique.
Yeah, we're gonna throw a link to it right now in the chat.
Sweet,
go grab it.
Amazing.
Today.
Yeah, go grab it. And again, all the other titles are available for trial. So once you install Drive, just activate the trials for all the others too, and you can get a real taste of what USynth can do. Drive is for it's like house essentials. So my understanding is it's kind of like core, but for house music. And so you've got kind of like the staples in here. But I haven't really actually spent too much time with it myself, so I'm not sure which presets are my favorite. So you got sequencers and stuff. So definitely a lot of unique sound design, and the randomize button is just superb. I love it. Because then you find something you didn't know about, and then you save it, and then you've got a cool, unique sound that maybe nobody has heard. It's very cool stuff. Yeah. USynth Drive. Definitely check it out.
Definitely check it out. Why not?
And then, yeah, exactly. And then I'm trying to think the other ones. Yeah, we touched on Hot real quick. I'm just going through some of our recent releases that have been doing well. Virtual Drummer Hot is very cool. There are different drum kits based on the top genres in music. I'm playing the synth again, my bad. And if you're not familiar with our Virtual Drummer series, you have a lot of control here. So you have phrases like in the other instruments, and you have the ability to drag out the MIDI like I showed you. But over here, you have control over the instrument. So you can play it like any other drum rack. So that's super cool. And if you want to customize, these are preset kits here, so you can change the total kit. And once you do that, if you want to make further adjustments, you can actually change out the individual ones. So if you don't like that snare, you could pick a different one, and so on. And you have decay controls. So you actually have a lot of control in the Virtual Drummer series, and I think it's awesome. But yeah, so definitely check out Hot as well. Again, free 30-day trial. And all of these are on Plugin Boutique as well. So Hot, and we went over the Pianist, and yeah, I mean, mostly touched on everything I wanted to go through today. Any other questions pop up in the chat?
Someone's wondering why is it brass with extra A's and S's, strings with extra I's, but no extra U's and drum.
Sure. So the idea with strings, let me open all the UIs. The idea with strings came from the actual physical string instruments. So you'll notice the 4 eyes, they're a little staggered to imply that they're longer. That's to represent the strings on the instruments. And so it's kind of a creative, what's the word I'm looking for? Mentioning, of the nature of the instrument. Same with, you'll notice the meter cutout. So they look kind of like the cutouts on a cello or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the original idea. And it was decided that way because first and foremost, we want our instruments to feel creative. We don't want this to feel like a all control natural string. We have finishers, we have crazy sound design. So we wanted it to feel like it was inspiring. And so that decision was just a creative decision to mention or to acknowledge the real strings. And when we did drums, you'll actually notice not in the name, but on the UI, it resembles it as well. So the U is like a big kettle drum, kind of like a timpani. But you won't notice that because it's not in the actual written out name. It's just DRUM. So it didn't really make sense to extend it because visually it wasn't needed.
But that's so wonderful. I mean, I thought it was just a throwaway kind of comment in the thing, but there's
there is actually
makes perfect sense. Yeah.
There is some ideation behind them. And drums, it's funny because if you watch our walkthrough videos that we have Derek Von Crow make walkthrough videos, and he's built a reputation for himself because he's very comical and they're crazy. So he put out we posted another walkthrough for Brass today. He does pretty much every new product. And so he has this thing where he introduces all of them by saying them very extended, like drums and stuff like that. And this one actually does, you could still see that because it's like stretched. So that theme is still in there. And then with Brass, you asked about Brass. We spent a lot of time on trying to get a logo that felt like it was A, modern and creative, but B, also accurately resembling horns or ensembles. So we tried a couple of things that were like a little too complicated. We experimented with some ideas, but this is where we landed. And having it just be 1A didn't really give us a lot of creative options. And also we felt like it would be wrong to not go back to our strings theme because in my head, I view strings and brass in terms of the instrument, the nature of the instruments. I view those as like, these are the essentials, and drums is like the spine. You know what I mean? The percussion is like the backbone. So it kind of feels right for brass to match strings, in terms of like the name and everything. So it just all kind of clicked into place. We had this design that worked and we just felt like it felt right. But it's 3 instead of 4 just because, and also Another reference is the Brahm. You know, that sound, that infamous sound, is actually spelled like that, and it's spelled with 3 A's. So if you Google like infamous or like famous Brahm sound or Hans Zimmer Brahm, everyone pretty much writes it Braam.
Yep.
And so I was like, wow, that's perfect, you know, because everyone knows that. That's a familiar thing. So
Nice.
it really just worked. It worked out all around with 3 A's. That's why we kept it that way. Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful, Adam. Thank you very much for walking us through and doing a lot, man. You really brought us on a journey there. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having us on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's giveaway time, if you don't mind, Adam.
All yours.
So let me see. Let me check. While I'm looking at this, we're running a poll. It's a very important poll. If you could just go ahead and vote for your favorite option there on that poll, and also give us a little like. Give Adam a like for that incredible in-depth presentation and demonstration of a lot of different UJAM products, all of which are available on Plugin Boutique. So definitely click any of the links we have anywhere in the chat, under the video, whatever. Go check it out. And don't forget, Black Friday is on and popping right now. Over 300 different deals on pluginboutique.com, of a wide range, literally everything you can think of. We got it for you. And UJAM and Adam have been very, very kind and generous, and we are going to have 5 winners today. That's right. 5 people who have been kind and courteous and positive in the chat are going to walk away with not only someone is going to win a version of Brass, but also Sparkle 2, Hot, and Berserk. And then some lucky person is going to win the Symphonic Elements bundle, which is insane. That's really, really great. So I've got 10 names here, Adam. And the way we do this is these names have been chosen at random. People have been positive in the chat, as I've been saying. And now you get to tell me 5 numbers between 1 and 10, and those 5 people are going to win.
All right. Hopefully I don't make enemies here.
So just to let you know, the first number you choose is the person who's going to win the bundle. And then the next 4 will win in the order I announced them: Brass, Sparkle, Hot, Berserk.
Yeah, let's do them one at a time. Then you could tell me and I'll pick one.
All right, so here we go. The SE Symphonic Element Bundle winner, please.
And it's 1 to 10, you said?
1 to 10.
All right, we're going to pick number... I'm torn here. I have 2 favorite numbers within that range. Let's go for number 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. F in chat. F in chat. Congratulations. Symphonic Elements Bundle coming your way. If your name is called, what you need to do is just email support@pluginboutique.com with your name, what you won, where you won it, and a screenshot of yourself logged in to your account, so like the admin panel here on YouTube, and we will get you sorted. So F for chat, congratulations. The SE Bundle is yours. Next up, Brass.
Brass. So for Brass, we'll do the other number 4.
Yeah, that's fair. 1, 2, 3, 4. Addie Cox. Addie Cox, congratulations. You are the proud winner and owner of Brass from UJAM. Next up, Sparkle 2.
Ooh, this is a good one, too. Let's run with number 9.
1, 2, 3, 4. Dave Dobbins. I saw Dave. He was very active today. So, paid off, Dave. Dave Dobbins. Just writing these down. I always find it weird writing things down on stream. It's a little strange, but someone's got to do it, right? All right, next up, Hot.
Ooh, Hot.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Gotta go, just because of the theme of Hot, I gotta go with number 1.
That makes sense. That is Luck Therault. That's Theriault. Congrats, you win Hot. Okay, let's just go over here and then put Hot. All right, and last but certainly not least, there is one more winner today, and that is the winner of Berserk. Who's that going to be? What do we got?
I'm feeling number 3 for Berserk.
Blinky Blinky Computer Band. What a great name. I'm going to go ahead and just
Sounds like I might like Berserk.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and just copy that name. I'm not going to be able to write that.
I totally forgot. I meant to kind of do an overview of Berserk, too. But if you're not familiar, Berserk is the... kind of dubstep-oriented beatmaker that we released recently.
Oh, all right. All right, nice. Okay, well, those are the winners from today's stream. Don't forget, Black Friday stream is next Friday, right here on the channel, 5 p.m. UK time. Rob Jones and myself been talking about plugins, giving away plugins, hanging out, chilling, answering your questions, just relaxing. I mean, it's Friday. World Cup is on. The UK versus the US is Friday. So we're all excited to watch that. I know you are. You're in the US right now. That's right, Adam?
Yeah, I'm based in New York. Yep.
Are you in the city? Because I heard sirens twice while we were doing the stream.
Oh, did you really? I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm in Brooklyn, and pretty much anywhere in New York, you'll hear sirens regularly. So yeah, I apologize about that if it was loud.
No, that's not. I just thought it was funny. By no means you don't need to apologize.
Absolutely, I am in the city.
Awesome. Okay, well, Adam, I'll let you go. I'll say thanks on behalf of myself. Thanks for coming through. Thanks to UJAM for doing the stream. Thanks to UJAM for allowing us to give away stuff to some of our viewers. Thanks to Killian for running the chat. Great job as usual. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. You know the deal. We're doing this all the time. Like, subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss the next one, which will be next Friday. Adam, thanks again. And
thank you so much.
Everybody else, we will see you in the next stream.
To the top, ragamuffin keeps striving in every way. International, what they call me international. When me ride palm with them in the move, but the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm with them and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place, I with the one Jamal skinny. We are the general. We sit about the rhythm in the open, the mic incredible. I'm in right part of the move, but the rhythm I sit down steady. Every ragamuffin you do, I feel rock and follow me. You know you love her for your life. We jump up on the rhythm, make we ride it right. We chat up on the mic and keep it international. Cause anytime we jump on mic, they call we give it a general. International, what they call me international. When me ride palm with them in the move, but the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm with them and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place, I with the one Jamal stick.